Hi, it's Nitya with Karma Chameleon. Welcome. This channel is all about Feng Shui Chinese Astrology, and we often read the charts of celebrities and famous people to better understand our own charts and our own lives. Welcome. Today I'm beginning what I see as one of many upcoming videos about Feng Shui, and I think this is a good place to start. We're starting with, what is home? What is home to you? For most of us, ideally, it's your sanctuary. It's where you go home to your loves, whether they're furry loves or little people loves or big people loves or just yourself. And when you come in, it feels like a sigh of relief. The energy is calm. The energy feels soothing and comforting. You've designed it in a way that it is free of clutter, so that when you walk in the door, you don't immediately get hit with the to-do list. The dirty floor that needs to be vacuumed, the piles of dust bunnies from your cat, your dog, your kids, whatever, that you don't have to trip over things to get in the door because things, again, are neat and tidy. And I'm not in any way, shape, or form a perfectionist about keeping things clean. It needs to, obviously, you don't want it to be sterile. You don't want to walk in and feel like you're in a museum or a hospital. It wants to feel like a cozy home. And I can honestly say every house I've lived in, and I've lived in many houses, everybody walks in and immediately feels relaxed. And that's really what you want. When you purchase a house, it really should feel like something that honors you and isn't meeting any kind of expectation or requirement beyond that it feels good to be there. I have countless stories of people that got into a home situation and wound up suffering. And you can read previous videos that I've posted about my client stories. And this one client comes to mind that I've been recently giving advice to. And from the moment I walked into this house, I knew this was not for her, not her style. No matter how much money she could dump into renovating it, it would never feel like a home that suited her. Sometimes a fun thing I do in my head, and I did this with many of the houses that I rented over the years, was I recreate what the house ideally could be. And I take the floor plan and I move things around. And for instance, the last house I was in, I rented that place kind of in a life crisis. And that sometimes happens. It's a horrible time to make big decisions, is when you're in a personal crisis. And yet sometimes we don't have a choice. And I felt very guided to that house, very much like the one I'm in now. And I trusted that I was being guided to this house for a particular reason. And I also intuitively knew that the last house I was in was a temporary place. It was kind of a transition house. And I knew that what came next was going to be big and surprising and beyond anything I could understand or know in that time. But I trusted it. And believe me, all of that happened. So one of the problems with the house that I was in it was this little sugar cube sized house on a corner. The corner was kind of busy. And so people would come around the corner and whoosh down the street. Well, it wouldn't have been so bad if they hadn't put all the bedrooms on the street side. And I have said this so many times. People that design houses, especially in this country, the United States, crazy designs. Who wants to have their bedroom right outside of a sidewalk where you can hear people walking by? And so when I was playing around with the fantasy of what this house could have been, I literally flipped it, completely flipped it, so that the kitchen and the dining room were on the exterior side of the house and the bedrooms were on the interior. I suffered for that layout. And I did my best to remedy the situation. But ultimately, I suffered for it. I had horrible insomnia in that house. Horrible insomnia. A lot of houses also, when you come in the front door, you're like in the house. You are in the house. There's no entrance hall. There's no vestibule, which is where takes me back to one of the houses I grew up in Baltimore City, where the row house, you walked in and there was like this ante room that you came into first before coming into the hallway. And so there's all kinds of designs of homes that can be problematic. Like, for instance, I think of another house that I go to regularly where the design again is like, why? Why did you give the bedrooms the sunniest side of the house and the living rooms the darkest side? Doesn't make any sense. You want the bedrooms to be in the most yin aspect, where it's dark and nurturing, right? And the yang part of the house, the active living part of the house, again, I would flip the house. The other thing I often ask somebody when I first meet a client, where is your favorite place to be in sanctuary, to relax and be in your own space? And I can tell you, when that question hits somebody like a slap in the face and they have that, they don't know what to do with that question, I know that house is a problem for them. If you don't have a cozy corner to sit in and read a book or meditate or look out a window at the hummingbird feeder, you've got to ask yourself, where is that space? Can it be created? Or is this home one that does not give you a place to really chill out for yourself? It's great to have family rooms where everybody's gathered together, but we also need our own space to recharge. And I'm not talking man cave and she shed. Where is that corner in the house? Like the rocking chair that you might have by a window. Because it doesn't have to isolate you from the rest of your family or loved ones. It can just be a little spot that everybody kind of knows, oh yeah, that's where mom or that's where my sweetheart sits. Yeah, she loves to sit there and read her book. And when she does, I always give her a little space. Because why? When you claim that space for yourself, most people are going to honor that, especially if you're honoring it for yourself. And that space shouldn't be a bedroom necessarily, unless really that's your only option. And it definitely shouldn't be an office, because your office makes you think of work and paying bills. And that's not relaxing. Now, you could be creative in an office space. Maybe put up, like a Chinese screen to divide off part of it. You can get very creative with your spaces. And that's something that I help people to do. But I also want to mention your Gua number. Depending on whether you identify as male or female, and your birth year, you can look up your Gua number. And you can go online and Google my Gua number, and you're going to find a website that gives you access to that. There's one website that I pulled up, Your Chinese Astrology. And that's going to give you the information as to whether you are a Western person or an Eastern person. The ideal is that your front door or your bedroom matches at least one of your Gua numbers, Gua directions, okay? So, if, for instance, your front door and your bedroom do not match one of your numbers, it is a house that is working against you, and you will suffer for it. Knowing this information before buying a house obviously is really helpful. The other thing is that if you're in a couple situation, it's ideal that the bedroom and the front door match at least one person. So for instance, if my boyfriend matched the front door and I matched the bedroom, perfect, or vice versa. But if one partner has the Gua number for both the bedroom and the front door, that person is going to dominate the home. And in addition to that, they're going to thrive and you're not. Now, I've mentioned this, fractures, cracks. Cracks show up in our lives all over the place. These are our challenges. When too many show up, that's when things fall apart, like a divorce, like a relationship breaking up, like hitting a wall with your career. We're trying to avoid the cracks. We're trying to avoid injuring aspects of our life to ensure that we thrive. If your home is working against you, any matter, depending on which part of the home is being affected, it can tank your career, your finances, your relationships, or all of it. And I have seen how 1 year with a really bad lineup of both your bedroom and your front door being afflicted can take somebody down. No prospects for work, challenges with your personal relationships, challenges with your health, challenges. Yeah. So, how do we get ourselves into balance is finding that home where the Gua number is positive. You also want a house that has a trigram, a hexagram, that is a beneficial one. And I looked up the one for somebody recently, and I believe then this is from the ancient book of the I Ching. The I Ching is where the trigrams come from that build the Bagua. So this is what I've talked about. When you go to origin stories, where do all of these things come from? Feng Shui, for instance. These are ancient practices, thousands of years old. And I love origin stories. I love delving deep into where things began. For instance, yin yoga is one of the earliest practices of yoga, of hatha yoga, because it is meditative. And what is the practice of yoga if it isn't learning meditation and how to create that calm, peaceful connection to self in better understanding who we are? And actually, I teach on Insight Timer app on Tuesday evenings. You can check out Insight Timer, also offer meditations on there. Anyway, there's, the thing I often say about Feng Shui is it is an onion to be peeled. And I have a tendency to jump all over the place, trying to stay focused at the same time. So I hope you're following this, and your questions are more than welcome. So this person's I Ching reading for their house, their hexagram, which is taking the mountain, the back of the house, and placing that trigram on top of the trigram for the front of the house. And that's where you get the hexagram reading for the I Ching. All right, so their house is restricted. It's a house of restrictions. And then what does that speak to? Well, when I look at the journey that this person has had in this house, they've gone through, within the first month of living there, they lost their job. They are now months and months and months looking into finding a new job after losing their third job or second job, whatever, since living there. And they've only been there a few years. When I look at the history of somebody living in a house, I want to know what's going on. If there's instability where you are chronically having financial issues, employment issues, health issues, relationship issues, any and all of it, and certainly if all of that has been like up, down, and all around, and there's no stability, you've got to look at what is happening here. So Gua number, very important. Second to that, what is happening with the annual flying stars that is either working for or against your Gua numbers being beneficial to you. And that's where you can get a bad year. So the other is, what is the hexagram of your house? And that's going to tell you the story of your home. And if it is one that is challenged, you might want to think about why you're still there. Could you have chosen a different house that supported you in a better, more stable way? And lastly, I'm going to end this on this last piece, which is a big one that we can dive into later, the 4 animals. And this is form school Feng Shui that I learned with Peter Long. He was in Canada and he's back in Hong Kong. Anyway, the 4 animals are crucial. And one of the most important is the turtle. You've got to have a stable, strong back to your home. That can be buildings. It can be a mountain. It can be tall, solid fence. And it's also trees. But if it is wide open, you don't have any support. If the back of the house, all the way down to the lowest level, like the basement, is open, it's not a good situation because all of that backing washes away. Next, if you're standing, like for instance, if my front door is at my back and I'm looking into the yard, now I'm looking out to the phoenix. Okay, and the phoenix flies open and free, so you want openness in the front of your yard. The worst is if you have a wall or a tree right in front of the front door. It's like an obstacle, okay? You want openness. And the land can go down a little bit, but never severe landscape, like really sharp hills, okay? And you don't want like a street coming at you. Like if your house is at the end of a street and all that energy is coming at you, or at the bottom of the cul-de-sac, the worst. Cul-de-sacs in general are really bad. So that is important. To the left is the dragon, which is money and the man of the house. And that should sit higher and be very strong. If you have a road here, that shows the flow of money. The flow of money. And that's okay, but it's going to mean that the man of the house is gone a lot. Notice that. That's the same if the driveway is on the left side as well. You don't want it to be exaggerated. You don't want it to be a big high hill with lots of tall trees or buildings, because that is going to mean that the man of the house is going to overpower and dominate in a way that could be potentially harming. To the right is the tiger, and this is the female. This is the female of the house, and this is also your helpful friends, your allies in life, okay? And again, if there's a road here, then your friends are going to be coming and going. Your support, your allies coming and going. And the woman of the house is more likely to be on the road, just like if the driveway is on the right-hand side, right? And that's just like a tiny little snapshot. You can go so much deeper into the four animals. But that is traditionally the ideal setup. You don't want anything coming at the house. Corners of other buildings, other homes, and I mean other buildings, including your own garage, isn't sitting at an angle where a corner of the garage is pointing at the house. Those are called poison arrows. You don't want to live where there's high wire, those big high power wire lines. And again, I always come back to your home is a sanctuary. And I think the next video I'm going to post for you is going to be about where is the best place to create your sanctuary and a place for you to meditate. And so I think that's it for today. Thank you so much. And I hope that your home is a place where your heart can sing and love blooms. And if you're interested in a virtual consultation, feel free to reach out. Thank you so much. Be well.